Arthur was flipping through a travel magazine one lazy afternoon when an idea struck him. "Hey Jeff," he called out, glancing over at the demon lounging on the couch, engrossed in what appeared to be an old treasure map. "How about a road trip to the Grand Canyon?" Jeff looked up, his yellow eyes gleaming with curiosity. "The Grand Canyon? What's that? Some kind of magical pit filled with treasure?" His tail twitched excitedly at the thought. Arthur chuckled. "Not quite. It's one of the most famous natural wonders in the world. A massive canyon carved by the Colorado River. No treasure, but it's breathtaking." Jeff's eyes widened further. "A massive canyon? That sounds amazing. Let's go. I'll pack my gear." He jumped off the couch, the treasure map fluttering to the floor as he raced to his room. Arthur followed with a grin, wondering what kind of gear Jeff might consider necessary for a simple road trip. In no time, Jeff's room was a whirlwind of activity. Arthur stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching in bemusement as Jeff tossed item after item into a large, ancient-looking trunk. "Let's see. We'll need this," Jeff muttered to himself, throwing in a pickaxe that looked like it belonged in a museum. "And this," he added, holding up a grappling hook. "Yep. You never know when you might need to climb something. Oh, and can't forget the portable cauldron." Arthur raised an eyebrow. "Jeff, you know we're just going to see a canyon, right? No treasure hunting, no dragon fighting." Jeff paused, looking up with a sheepish grin. "Right, but it's always better to be prepared. Besides, what if we find something interesting? Like, I don't know, a lost city or a portal to another dimension?" Arthur shook his head, laughing. All right. Bring what you want, but I'm sticking with the basics. Clothes, snacks, and a camera." Satisfied with his packing, Jeff slammed the trunk shut, its contents rattling ominously. "Ready. When do we leave?" The next morning, they set off in Arthur's car, the trunk loaded with Jeff's essential gear. The first few hours of the road trip were relatively peaceful, with Jeff humming to himself as he studied a map he had found in an old book. "Did you know this map shows a hidden treasure trail that supposedly leads to the Grand Canyon?" Jeff asked, tracing the faded lines with his claw. Arthur glanced over and couldn't help but laugh. "Jeff, that map looks like it's from the 1800s. I think we'll stick to the GPS." Jeff frowned at the car's navigation system, which was currently pronouncing Grand Canyon as Grand Canyon in a robotic voice. "Are you sure we can trust this thing? It sounds like it's trying to lead us to a secret lair." Arthur smirked. "Pretty sure, but if we end up in a secret lair, at least we'll have your grappling hook." As they continued down the highway, they made a stop at a drive-thru for lunch. Jeff watched in amazement as Arthur placed their order through a small speaker. "So, we just yell our order into that box and they give us food? That's incredible," Jeff exclaimed. When they reached the pickup window, Jeff leaned out of the car, grinning at the confused cashier. "Thank you, magical food box." Arthur could only shake his head, trying not to laugh as he pulled away from the window. Throughout the trip, Jeff's antics kept the mood light. He insisted on trying to navigate using his ancient map, despite the fact that it didn't match any of the current roads. When they passed a billboard advertising the Grand Canyon, Jeff squinted at it and asked, "Do you think that's a clue? Maybe it's pointing us toward a secret entrance?" "No, Jeff," Arthur said, stifling a laugh. "It's just an ad. But don't worry, we'll get there soon." As they got closer to their destination, the excitement in the car grew. Jeff was practically bouncing in his seat, his mind racing with all the possibilities the Grand Canyon might hold. Arthur, watching his friend's enthusiasm, couldn't help but smile. This trip was already shaping up to be one for the books. Finally, after hours of driving and several amusing detours, they arrived at the entrance to the Grand Canyon National Park. As they drove through the gates, Jeff's eyes widened in awe at the sight before him. "Arthur," Jeff whispered, his voice filled with wonder. "It's even bigger than I imagined. Do you think there's a dragon living down there?" Arthur laughed, shaking his head. "No dragons, Jeff. But I promise, it's going to be an adventure you'll never forget." And with that, they drove on, ready to explore one of nature's greatest wonders. Though in Jeff's mind, it was still entirely possible they might stumble upon a hidden treasure or two. After their long but entertaining journey, Jeff and Arthur finally arrived at the Grand Canyon. As they stepped out of the car and approached the rim, Jeff's eyes widened, taking in the vastness of the canyon before them. The sight was truly breathtaking, But in typical Jeff fashion, his interpretation of it was far from ordinary. "Arthur, are you sure this isn't a portal to another dimension?" Jeff asked, staring into the depths of the canyon with a mix of awe and suspicion. "It's just so enormous. I bet it's hiding something." Arthur laughed, shaking his head. "Nope, just a really big, really old canyon, carved by the Colorado River over millions of years. No portals, no hidden dimensions." Jeff tilted his head, unconvinced. "You never know. This could be the perfect place for a dragon to make its nest. Or maybe it's a giant's playground." Arthur grinned. "I think you've been reading too many fantasy novels, Jeff. But hey, let's go explore. Who knows what we'll find? Maybe some ancient rocks." Jeff's eyes lit up. Ancient rocks? Like gemstones? Or maybe enchanted stones? Arthur sighed, realizing Jeff was once again letting his imagination run wild, but he couldn't help but smile. "Sure, Jeff. Let's find some enchanted stones." They decided to join one of the guided tours, hoping to learn more about the canyon's history. As they approached the group, Jeff's presence immediately caught the attention of both the tour guide and the other tourists. His bright red skin, sharp horns, and boundless enthusiasm made him stand out in a crowd. The tour guide, a cheerful woman named Linda, started her spiel. "Welcome to the Grand Canyon, everyone. Today, we'll be exploring some of the most iconic viewpoints and learning about the geological history of this magnificent landmark." Jeff raised his hand eagerly, interrupting her introduction. "Excuse me, Linda. Do you know if there's any treasure hidden down there? Maybe a lost city or an ancient temple?" Linda blinked, taken aback by the question. Well, the canyon is known for its geological formations, but there's no treasure. Unless you count the beauty of nature." Jeff nodded sagely. "Ah, I see. So the treasure is metaphorical. Got it. But if we happen to find any real treasure, dibs." Arthur chuckled quietly, watching the other tourists exchange amused glances. Throughout the tour, Jeff continued to pepper Linda with outlandish questions. What kind of magical creatures live down there? Do you think the Colorado River is enchanted? Could the canyon walls be hiding a secret passageway to another world? Linda, doing her best to maintain her composure, answered with a mix of factual information and bemused humor. "Well, there are plenty of animals that call the Grand Canyon home, though I'm afraid none of them are magical. And the river, well, it's powerful, but it's not enchanted." Jeff nodded thoughtfully, as if processing this information. "Not enchanted, huh? That's what the enchanted rivers want you to think." Arthur, stifling a laugh, gave Linda an apologetic look. He's just really excited. As the tour continued, Jeff couldn't resist interacting with the other tourists, many of whom found his enthusiasm contagious. At one point, Jeff tried to convince a group of kids that if they yelled loud enough into the canyon, they might wake up a sleeping giant. "Go on, try it," Jeff encouraged, his eyes wide with mischief. "But be careful. If he wakes up, he might ask for a snack, and giants eat a lot." The kids, giggling and excited, started shouting into the canyon, their voices echoing back. Arthur quickly stepped in, giving Jeff a playful nudge. "Let's not cause any giant-related panic, okay?" Jeff grinned. "Just having a little fun, Arthur. But if a giant does show up, I've got my grappling hook ready." After the tour, they decided to explore the canyon on their own. Jeff was eager to capture every possible angle of the canyon with his phone, insisting on taking a selfie at each new viewpoint. "Arthur, do you think we can get the whole canyon in one shot?" Jeff asked, holding up his phone and squinting at the screen. "Maybe if I stand on that rock over there?" Arthur, ever the voice of reason, gently pulled Jeff back. "Let's not climb any rocks, Jeff. The last thing we need is you tumbling into the canyon." Jeff sighed, conceding. "Fine, but I'm not leaving until I get the perfect shot. This place is amazing." After taking what felt like 100 selfies, they made their way to the souvenir shop. Jeff's eyes immediately fell on a stuffed eagle perched on a shelf. "Arthur, look at this. It's perfect," Jeff exclaimed, grabbing the eagle and holding it up triumphantly. "I shall name him Claw, and he will be my sidekick on this grand adventure." Arthur chuckled. "Claw, huh? Well, he's certainly majestic. Are you sure you don't want something more practical, like a water bottle or a hat?" Jeff shook his head, hugging the stuffed eagle to his chest. Nope. Claw is coming with us. He'll help us find the treasure. Arthur smiled, realizing that trying to steer Jeff toward practicality was a losing battle. All right then. Welcome to the team, Claw. With their souvenirs in hand, they continued exploring, Jeff clutching Claw as they wandered through the various viewpoints. Despite Jeff's over-the-top antics, Arthur couldn't deny that the day had been filled with laughter and memorable moments. As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the canyon, Jeff and Arthur found a quiet spot to rest and take in the breathtaking view. Jeff, usually full of energy, was uncharacteristically quiet as he stared out at the canyon. "This place, it's really something," Jeff said softly, a note of awe in his voice. "I know I joke around a lot, but wow." Arthur smiled, clapping Jeff on the back. "Yeah, it really is. And the best part? We get to share it together." Jeff nodded, a contented smile on his face. "You're right, and who knows? Maybe tomorrow we'll find that treasure." Arthur laughed. "Maybe, but if not, I think we've already found something pretty special." With that, they sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun dip below the horizon, ready for whatever adventures the next day would bring. The next morning, Jeff and Arthur were up early, ready for another day of exploration. Arthur had planned a hike along one of the canyon trails, hoping to get a closer look at the breathtaking scenery. Jeff, however, had other ideas. Fully decked out in his explorer gear, complete with his grappling hook, stuffed eagle claw strapped to his shoulder, and an oversized safari hat, Jeff looked every bit the part of a dramatic adventurer. To top it off, he had adopted a fake British accent that he believed made him sound more like a seasoned explorer. "Ready for the journey of a lifetime, old chap?" Jeff asked, striking a pose with one foot perched on a rock. Arthur couldn't help but laugh. "Jeff, you look like you're ready to lead an expedition through uncharted territory. We're just going on a hike." "Ah, but any hike can turn into an expedition," Jeff declared, dramatically pointing toward the trail. "Let us venture forth and uncover the mysteries of the Grand Canyon." Arthur shook his head, smiling as they started down the trail. The morning air was crisp, and the canyon was bathed in the soft light of the rising sun, creating the perfect backdrop for their hike. As they walked, Jeff's imagination ran wild. Every rock, tree, and crevice was an opportunity for adventure. At one point, Jeff abruptly stopped in the middle of the trail, holding up a hand to signal Arthur to do the same. "Do you feel that, Arthur? The air is thick with magic. I think we're approaching a canyon spirit's lair." Arthur raised an eyebrow, amused but skeptical. "A canyon spirit, huh? What does it feel like?" Jeff closed his eyes and took a deep breath, then suddenly began performing an impromptu and frankly ridiculous dance. He spun in circles, flailed his arms, and chanted nonsense words, all in an effort to summon the canyon spirit. Arthur burst out laughing, nearly doubling over. "Jeff, what on earth are you doing?" Jeff paused mid-spin, looking slightly sheepish. "Just trying to see if the spirit might show up. You know, as a friendly gesture." Arthur wiped away a tear from laughing so hard. "I think the spirit is just as confused as I am. Let's keep moving before you accidentally summon something else." Further along the trail, Jeff spotted a squirrel darting across the path. His eyes lit up with excitement, and he immediately crouched down, extending his hand as if to beckon the creature. "Hello, little friend. Do you happen to know where the hidden treasure is?" Jeff asked earnestly. The squirrel froze for a moment, staring at Jeff, before scurrying away up a tree. Arthur chuckled, shaking his head. "Jeff, I don't think that squirrel is interested in treasure hunting." Jeff sighed. "Pity. I thought we had a real lead there." As they continued their hike, Jeff became obsessed with investigating every interesting-looking rock they came across. He was convinced that each one might be a rare gemstone, or perhaps even a piece of an ancient artifact. "Look at this one, Arthur," Jeff exclaimed, holding up a particularly shiny rock. "It could be a fragment of an enchanted amulet." Arthur inspected the rock and gave Jeff a knowing smile. Or it could just be a regular rock. Jeff shrugged, undeterred. You never know until you check. As they approached the end of the trail, Jeff's excitement reached new heights. He spotted a towering rock formation that jutted out from the canyon wall and immediately decided it was the entrance to a secret treasure cave. "Arthur, this is it! The treasure must be hidden inside," Jeff declared, his eyes wide with anticipation. Arthur, sensing what was coming next, quickly tried to intervene. "Jeff, I don't think..." But it was too late. Jeff had already started climbing the rock formation, his grappling hook at the ready. He scrambled up the rocks with surprising agility, convinced that he was on the verge of a major discovery. Just as he reached the top, Jeff lost his footing, and a small landslide of pebbles cascaded down the side of the formation. Arthur rushed forward, pulling Jeff back to solid ground just in time. They both tumbled to the base of the formation, laughing breathlessly. "Well, that didn't go as planned," Jeff admitted, dusting off his clothes. "But it was still exciting, right?" Arthur grinned, shaking his head. "Only you, Jeff. Only you could turn a simple hike into an epic quest for treasure." Jeff beamed, his usual enthusiasm undiminished. "That's the spirit. The real treasure is the adventure, anyway." As the afternoon sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting a warm glow over the canyon, Jeff and Arthur found a quiet spot to rest and take in the view. The vastness of the Grand Canyon spread out before them, its beauty amplified by the soft, golden light. The Grand Canyon had been more than just a natural wonder to explore. It had been the backdrop for yet another of Jeff's wild and wonderful adventures. And as they drove away, the sun setting behind them, Arthur knew that there were plenty more adventures, just waiting for them around the corner.